moving on. Now, the big question, right? Create a list of target schools. Like, how am I going to build this list? Well, look, you got your criteria now. You got it on paper, right? So now you can start adding the schools that you feel like you meet your criteria. Now, you may not know everything about the criteria, but if it fits, like, you may not know for sure if you fit athletically. There's certainly ways to try to figure that out, but you definitely can put it on the list and figure it out, right? By contacting the coach and seeing if it could be an athletic fit. There's certainly ways to know financially, if it possibly could be a fit or not. Again, but contact the coach if it's scholarship related or not. That's a way to figure it out. And then on the academic side, that's the easiest side, I think, because you can actually go online and start looking at the, majors and the different departments at the university.
Right.
I also think that it's very, very important. I'm just going to throw in a tip there, is that we talked about contacting college coaches in one of our shows already, episodes, but when you are contacting coaches, there's a lot of fear behind being upfront with coaches and talking to them about your budget. And coaches sometimes ask you what your budget is upfront. I think they're doing a better job of that, because if their school costs a certain amount of money and they're certain, that's what they're going to be able to sort of work with you on, then they might ask you to make sure they're not barking up the wrong tree. But I also think it's very important for the athletes and the family to ask that question early on. It doesn't have to be the first thing that comes out of your mouth, but I think there's a way to say it, to be like, look, this is what we're really looking to pay, or what would it cost me? You don't even have to say what you want to pay, because some people want that negotiation bargaining power. I totally get that. So they might just say to you, you might just go to the coach and be like, look, what kind of scholarships do you have? What do you think it would look like from a player like me? And this actually goes back to our episode on building up good player profile, because if you give the coach everything that they need in the player profile with all the attachments and documents, then they were going to be able to come back to you very quickly with at least a ballpark and understanding of where you might fit. And so what you're trying to establish is that after scholarships and financial aid and academic money, whatever's available at the school, that you're not looking at a school that might cost you 50 grand and your budget, not meaning what you want to pay, but what you can afford to pay is 25,000. And it's like not even reachable. So you want to avoid those situations. And I think there's a way to connect with the coaches and say that. And to be honest, like the way I would do it is have that open discussion very, soon after an interest is, hey coach, I'm just wondering what it might look like, because my family obviously has a budget and I'd like to make sure I'm not wasting your time and my time. And parents can help.
Yeah, you shouldn't be scared. Depending on which sport, a lot of times, like you were mentioning, the coach's first question is what's your budget? Only because, they know what they can work with or what type of budget they have for that year. So if you're looking for a full ride and they don't have any full rides available, then it's a quick yes or no answer if that's what you're looking for. So you'll find a lot of the times the coaches, first ask, what your budget is, and then if they can work around the budget, then, they're able to look at the other aspects, obviously.
So John, you talked about full ride there, which means, I want everything paid for. So I think a mistake that players make is sometimes they go in saying, I want a full ride, and they don't even realize that maybe they're not a kid that can get a full ride.
Right.
And so what that does is the coach is like, okay, I can't offer you that. And they may or may not tell you whether you're a full ride candidate or not. But that might deter the coach. So I think the way I like to go about it is, coach, I want to establish at least what the ballpark budget may look like, or what your athletes normally get, someone like me, and then have them tell you, so that then you can go back and say whether that sounds reasonable or not.
Right.
And it really, really, I can't emphasize enough how much it comes down to the parents knowing what their maximum amount that they'd be willing and able to spend, able to spend for a college for their child. because the last thing you want to do is give your budget that you want to have. Like you said, the full ride, or I want to pay $5,000, because that may not even be remotely realistic at certain schools. So go about it the other way. Go about it where you ask the coach, tell them to come back to you with something, even if they don't have exact numbers. That's cool. You can tell them ballpark figure, just want to have an idea. And again, you have a good profile, you give them the information they need. They can tell you what they can give academically, financial aid, and athletically, if that's possible. And then there you go, and you can start to figure out the options.
Right.
Okay, so how about the next one? Having an open mind. So having an open mind, John, what do you think is important here?
Well, I think you should never cancel out schools. Okay, always take a look at all your options that are coming your way, unless if your major doesn't fit, or the finances we keep talking about, if it's doesn't fit your budget, or if the athletic level is too low. So let's just say they're going to put you on at the top of the roster, let's say, but you kind of want to be on a more competitive team. And also don't cancel out schools because of again, you're going to have your preferences at the end of the day, but just because you want to go to school in California, let's say, doesn't mean your best fit school isn't in Indiana waiting for you. So never cancel out options. Always, you have your target school list, like you were saying, keep them on there and just kind of check them off as they come in. But again, just don't cancel out schools because, they could be a right fit. Again, going back to my, when I went to New Mexico, when I got, an email from the coach from Western New Mexico, I'm like, I think I've heard of the state New Mexico only 4 times in my life prior to that, or maybe I saw it in a movie, but I'm just like, I'm definitely not going to go here. Could have been my first instinct, but I actually looked into it, went on the website, called the coach, talked with the coach, talked with a couple of the players, looked at their schedule, and, it ended up being the right fit. And I had, again, best 4 years of my life. So.
Yeah. So, I think it's important to understand the strategy.
Right.
As you said, you don't want to discount any schools. You're not going to judge a college by its cover. You're going to do your research, but you're going to take everything in. And as long as it meets that criteria of those top 3 factors that we talked about, then now you can build a large list, and then, you'll narrow it down. So coaches do the same thing. Athletes need to do the same thing coaches do. The strategy is build a big list and then start to narrow it down. Do not start by narrowing it down by what you think. There's many reasons, like John, you just mentioned. At the same time, it's a strategic move because you want to keep, coaches are going to hit up a bunch of players. They're going to have a bunch of players on their list because not every kid is going to commit with them. They're hoping to get 1 or 2 or a handful out of the 100 or 500 kids that they're contacting, depending on how many roster spots they have open that they need to fill. So you're trying to get to one school. You need to keep as many coaches on your list and radar as colleges until you start figuring out what the opportunities may be, because you don't want to go and say no prematurely and then come back to them because they may or may not have the spot for you.
Right.
And you haven't done enough homework yet to make that decision. The only homework you've done is, this is my criteria. And if it doesn't meet, like I had mentioned, by a long distance, like they don't have what you want to study or remotely close, well, then obviously that's not a right fit. But if it's not obvious, you've got to put it on the list.
Right. Even when it comes to, athletically, let's say, so, just you always have to do your research. If, I knew back, again, when I was getting recruited, where my athletic ability was and where I kind of stand. So was I going after top 10 schools? Was I going after the Dukes and UCLAs of the tennis world? No, I wasn't, because, I did my research. I knew the type of players that they have and the caliber of players, the levels, and it was just out of my reach. So I wouldn't spend time trying to go after these coaches or trying to, you know, see if I can get a scholarship there or whatever the case was. I was going after, you know, schools that fit my criteria as far as where my tennis level was, and then, you know, putting everything in place. And also on that point, like for all the student athletes that are using specific platforms out there, such as, you know, IMRecruitable's platform, a lot of these coaches that are, you know, viewing your profiles, you know, contacting you or searching a player like you, 99% of the time, these are the schools that you actually fall in a good fit with. So these are the coaches that, you know what they're looking for, and they know that you would, you know, you can make their rosters. So these are the coaches that you should be contacting, and also not, you know, discrediting in any way.
Yeah, you make some good points there. You know, not everybody is going to be as self-aware as yourself, who understood it better and really knew their level. I think some people are going to go and just still take a shot at it, and maybe that's their way of learning, which is fine. There's different ways.
It's not that I understood to begin with, because I didn't quite understand to begin with, but I knew kind of the thing that you do have to understand is that you have to do your research, right? So again, when I was a teenager, like I knew of only like the top, you know, big name schools, watching March Madness basketball and so on. So I wanted to go to North Carolina, UCLA, your Dukes. And, you know, when I started to do my recruiting process, you know, other than talking with some people, some coaches or players at my level, maybe a year older, that were getting scholarship offers, or I know where they ended up going to school and I was on the same level, I kind of, you know, balanced it out. I'm like, okay, so this is the level I'm at. Now I know that like UCLA is a complete, you know, out of reach school that, you know, even if I trained with top pros for the next 5 years, I might not be able to make. So,
but a lot of people, you know, aren't that understanding or self-aware. And really, I feel like sometimes parents are less understanding than even the athletes. I see a lot of athletes going to their parents.
right.
Their parents are like, hey, why don't you hit up some big, you know, some SEC schools, some ACC schools? Why don't you hit up some, you know, these schools? And, you know, it's like, and the kid goes, no, dad, like, I'm not that good. You know, that's, you know, so-and-so's level.
Right.
And then there's some players that don't want to really face the music, let's say. So that's kind of what I meant as well, was like, you know, that self-awareness, that understanding that it is sometimes tough, but if you have to do it, you have to take the emotion out of it, and you have to figure out where you fit by doing the research. But another point you made is that, you know, now you have the platforms where the coaches, you know, the market comes to you, and you throw your profile out there, and coaches can, you know, show interest. And
right.
so now you have a platform where you can literally figure out who's interested in you, what types of schools, what types of divisions, what types of level, because we didn't have that when we were growing up. And so I think it makes it that much easier. And so whoever's reaching out to you, I mean, I've seen kids' profiles on IMRecruitable, and they'll have, you know, like, let's say 10 D1 schools looking at them. They're all coming from, you know, majority of them are coming from the Patriot League, from certain conferences and leagues where they recruit those type of kids. You know, SEC schools obviously are competing against each other, ACC schools competing. So you're likely, if you're getting interest from a few or several ACC schools, that you might get interest from majority of them. You know, that's also very possible, or SEC schools, because both those conferences are the, you know, sort of some of the best of the best. So you're getting that information, but, you know, I think that it's about understanding, like you said, the research going into it, and looking at rosters, figuring it out, and also seeing what the market dictates.
Yeah, another good way to put it, like I was also mentioning myself, is if you know players that are, you know, our athletes that are, you know, a year or two, you know, older than you, that have went somewhere on scholarship, let's say, or went somewhere to, you know, play their sport, and you're at the same level, you can kind of, you know, ask them also, you know, who was recruiting them at the time. That's what I did. I had a player that I was the same level, you know, a year older than me, and, you know, I just asked him. He gave me all his letters of schools that were interested, and kind of like put me at a certain, level myself where I kind of knew where I was at and schools that I would be able to get in contact with and that would have interest. So
yeah, you got to use all the resources possible. Right. You let the coaches, which is the market, show you where you belong as they come and preview your profiles and follow you and search you. You go and talk to other athletes who may be already there that can help you because they've got a better understanding.
Right.
Coaches can help you. And this is some of the, like, you know, that goes on to what I was going to say next, which was some of these athletes, some of these sections like your athletics, academics, and financial side that we're talking about is you can go to these coaches in your research as there's interest on both sides. And even if there isn't, actually, even if you reach out to a coach and there is an interest, a lot of coaches, if you ask them, will give you some more information. Like, you know, do you think I can play in the conference and stuff? And maybe it's like, yeah, not for my team, but there's the bottom of the conference you might be able to get into. Or, you know, if you're going to schools that there is mutual interest, you got to start asking and doing the research by asking the coach, okay, where do you see me fit in your team? Like, what are your plans for me? Do you see me as a starter, and so on? And see right. if what the coach is saying aligns with your goals. On the academic side, you want to dig a little bit deeper, and not so you've established maybe that they have your major or the area of study you want to have, but you know, you got to look beyond, like, what are the classes like? What are the professors like? What kind of teaching styles do they have? What type of partnerships and internship job opportunities do these schools have for me? And during and after my college career, what kind of alumni network do they have? You know, I think that we forget about doing those things, and that will help you make the right choice. The last thing is on the financial side. So, you know, you may not get all the information from coaches right up front. So you might have to investigate more. Okay, on the financial aid side, a lot of schools have the net price calculator. So can I go in and put in my financials on the net price calculator on the school's website? And can I get a number to get an idea of what it might cost me to go to school there? Okay, right. Is there academic scholarships? Schools have on their websites how you can qualify for academic scholarships. I mean, some schools write it very plainly. You know, you have this X GPA and Y SAT or ACT score that automatically qualifies you for, say, $1,500 next year. There are other scholarships you can apply for that people forget to. There was one kid that I knew who went to North Florida. I'm good friends with one of the coaches there, and you know, he told the kid, hey, you should apply for this presidential scholarship because you've got the credentials, and so make sure you submit the application. The kid did, and he got an extra, I think, $5,000 or $6,000 a year, which is a lot of money. So there are, doing that research, figuring all those things out will get you to then narrow down the list, right?